Okay,
So
so today, okay, go ahead, Sanjay. That's fine.
no, I was just telling people that today we are here. It is just informal discussion type session, not actually. We will just change our ideas, thoughts, and learn from them. And it's about dosing,
Okay.
especially water dosing, right?
Yep, just about water dosing.
Okay.
Now I've lost my screen. Hang on. Oh, here we are. Okay. Because I have here, I'm going to read a segment of the chronic diseases from page 156. Hahnemann says, in chronic diseases, I have found it best to give a dose, for example, a spoonful of a solution of the suitable medicine at least every 2 days, more usually every day. But since water, distilled water, commences after a few days to be spoiled, whereby the power of the small quantity of medicine contained is destroyed, the addition of a little alcohol is necessary, or where it's not practical, or if the patient cannot bear it, I add a few small pieces of hard charcoal to the watery solution. This answers the purpose, except that the latter case the fluid in a few days receives a blackish tint. This is caused by shaking the liquid, as it is necessary every time before giving a dose of medicine, as we may see below. Before proceeding, here's an important part. Before proceeding, it is important to observe that our vital principle cannot well bear the same unchanged dose of medicine to be given twice in succession, much less more frequently to a patient. By this, the good effect of the former dose of medicine is either neutralized in part, or new symptoms proper to the medicine, symptoms which have not yet been present in the disease, appear, impeding the cure. Thus, even a well-selected homeopathic medicine produces ill effects and attains its purpose imperfectly or not at all. Thence comes the many contradictions of homeopathic physicians with respect to the repetition of the dose. So now he goes to say,
Francine asked the question.
oh, well, I don't have one screen up. Yes, Francine. Well, 150, hang on, 156.
Page number in chronic disease she is asking.
Yeah, 156.
Can I share that?
Yeah, well, the last time we did screen share, we lost our
Videos.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I will send it to you, Leonida Francine, okay? But it's 156, okay? It's page 156.
Thank you. I have the chronic diseases, but for anybody else who may need it.
Yeah, I'm just reading from Homeoind, pretty sure my 156 is the same, and I have this old book.
Okay, I will try to share if you get that.
No, not the same page. Sorry, guys. I'm using a Homeopathy International.
Okay, Homeo ain't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Button taking.
Chronic disease.
Yeah, 156.
Yeah, in the book itself, it's 156.
Not my book. That's weird. Anyway, that's not the. We just need to get the idea here.
Is it the same?
Yeah, that's what I'm using. That's what I have pulled up on my screen. 156. But that's too small for me to read, right? Okay. Okay, but in taking one and the same medicine repeatedly, which is indispensable to secure the cure of a serious chronic disease. So he's saying that we have to take the medicine often. It is indispensable. It means we have to do it. We cannot do without it to secure the cure of a serious chronic disease. If the dose in every case is varied and modified only a little in its degree of dynamization, then the vital force of the patient will calmly, this is important, calmly, and as it were, willingly, this is also a very important word, receive the same medicine, even at brief intervals, very many times in succession, with the best results, every time increasing the well-being of the patient. This slight change in the degree of dynamization is even affected if the bottle which contains the solution of one or more pellets is merely well shaken 5 or 6 times every time before taking it. Okay. So Hahnemann's saying that, yes, go ahead.
The question is, what exactly does Hahnemann mean by chronic disease? Which chronic diseases does he recommend to give daily or every other day? Because I noticed that it's way too much to give even every other day.
I agree with you. I do.
There
don't
is
seem-
explanation in aphorism number 248.
Yeah, but then you're talking about using an LM potency, which is different than using C scale. And the chronic diseases was written before the LM potency was released to the public. So even then he's talking about, using, okay, there we are. Sorry, I get just slightly disoriented with all the different things on the screen. Yeah, so I agree with you, Francine. Most people cannot take a dose of medicine every day, but it is indispensable to be able to give more than one dose in chronic disease. And by chronic disease, it can be anything from indigestion to arthritis to, to cancer. It could be anything. All the different things that fall underneath the headings of chronic disease. It could be emotional disturbance. There's a lot of, we have a long list of what constitutes a chronic disease.
So another thing that I find is we need to test the first dose. Sometimes we think it's the right remedy and perhaps it's not. And if we give it every day or every other day, it actually can cause damage. So I think it's important to test the remedy before we attempt to even give to repeat the dose, the dose every day or every other day.
For sure. Yeah, you want to see how your patient's responding to the medicine. And in an acute, you can usually see a response in just, within a couple hours. And in a chronic, you should see a response within a few days. And yeah, we do want to do that before we continue. But I never give medicine every day in a chronic. I never do. It's just, in my experience, it's just way too much medicine for people to handle.
I agree.
It's just way too much.
Tikva, how is this different between the split dose and also this is what they refer to as plussing, right?
I know people have made up all kinds of new names and new things out of the same thing that Hahnemann said a long time ago. And that's just the way things work. People take things on and they write their own book and they'll call it plussing instead of redynamization. And that's just what it is. But yes, the same thing. So since we're seeing so many of our patients not in our clinics lately, we often have to tell them to go and procure the medicine and make it up themselves. And sometimes when we have somebody who's close, but we haven't seen them personally, because let's say perhaps they have corona, which is sadly all too prevalent in our city these days. What I do is I have these little tiny bottles, and I fill them with a water dilution that I've made. And then this actually will make 2 doses. This here, because they can dump it into a cup. But, okay, do we need to go over making a basic water dilution? Do we need to go over making a basic water dilution?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have very nice little brown bottles with twisty lids and droppers that we can buy, which are very, very, very nice. And what we would do is we always want to leave a goodly portion not full. So you'd put in 1 or 2 of the little pellets, then put in about this much water. And then if you need to, a few drops of alcohol. We use vodka because that's what we have handy where we are. So this is a good way to store medicines and to give medicines to our patients, especially if they're going to need a lot of medicine. If they're not going to need a lot of medicine, sometimes what I do is just take some from this bottle and fill this bottle most of the way, and then they can drop it into a cup with more water and then swish it around and just take a mouthful. And then there's this type of thing. So if somebody has to make their own medicine in their own home that they've had to procure for themselves, then you can ask them if they have this size water bottle and they can fill it approximately halfway. You see some of mine's been used. You can have them fill it halfway, or empty it out halfway, depending on whichever the situation is. Sometimes lately, especially with these acute cases where people can't go out, they can't get people in, they can't go anywhere, they're just basically trapped. It's really hard. So sometimes, we just try to find somebody nearby who can drop medicine off nearby, just at their door. It's complicated like this. So then, you just have them fill it, empty it halfway, put in 2 pellets or 1 pellet. Hahnemann says 1 pellet is for sure enough, and Boninghausen says that 2 pellets makes him feel a little more secure. But that is definitely sufficient quantity of medicine for this quantity of water, or even lesser quantities of water. There's 8 tablespoon doses, 12 tablespoons. There's various different ways you can do this, but the main thing is to put it in water. And then if you need to preserve it with a little bit of vodka, I've never tried the charcoal, but something like this with a good quality water and just our tap water will last months, at least where we live. And I know that a lot of you have reverse osmosis, and so that should also be very stable. But you'll just have to kind of, and sometimes people don't have a water bottle. So I just say, well, put a pellet in a cup and then fill it halfway with water. And between doses, give it a really good stir. I didn't bring myself in a spoon, but we all know what a spoon looks like. And give it a really, 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 really good stir before, and set it aside between doses in case you need more. And then if they don't even have that, they might sometimes have this. In which case you can just tell them to put in a pellet and fill it up just like that to like to the label. I mean, there's just like all these different hacks, how to get the medicine
And
into
like
your
this,
patient.
you
Yeah,
remember
like
this
that.
word?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know, our patient is not likely to have labels and things like that at home. So, you know, it really depends on the severity of the situation, and we just do what we need to do, right, guys? Because it's not a matter of people just coming into the clinic and getting their nice little convenient dropper bottle. Okay, so you can really have people just make their medicine into any vehicle they have, even a glass cup. Metal's not quite as good because it tends to retain medicine in it. But glass, if you wash that with hot soapy water, and then, you know, the spoon, if they don't have a plastic spoon, they can wash their spoon with hot soapy water. So yeah, anyway, I mean, you know, these are, you can just be kind of fluid. Use a bottle like this, whatever you have that's clean and not contaminated with other substances will work. Yeah, sometimes if I need to, when I need to send just small amounts of medicine, I just fill this with the liquid. And that works out really, really, really well. And that gives like 2 doses if you have them put it in a cup. And then that way, when you have something big like this, it's great for succussion. And you know, to succuss a remedy, I don't have any space, you know, we hit it against something like a book, right? You know, we might want to do this 5 times, we might want to do it 7 times, we might want to do it 10 times. It depends on the vitality of the person. Most people, I think, do fine with 10. That's pretty much what I recommend, unless it's a special case where people are not quite okay in the, you know, severe sense. Because clearly we're seeing people that are not quite okay, right, guys? And okay, well, I'm going to go a little farther into the chronic diseases. In treating acute disease, the homeopathic physician will proceed in a similar manner. He will dissolve 1, or in parentheses 2, pellet of the highly potentized, well-selected medicine in 7, 10, or 15 tablespoons of water without addition by shaking the bottle. He will then, according to the disease is more or less acute and more or less dangerous, give the patient every half hour or every hour, every 2, 3, 4, or 6 hours, after again well shaking the bottle, a whole or a half tablespoon of the solution, or if in the case of a child, even less. If the physician sees no new symptoms develop, he will continue at these intervals until the symptoms present at first begin to be aggravated, and then he will give it at longer intervals and less at a time. And then he says children should be given these solutions from their usual drinking vessels. A teaspoon for drinking is to them unusual and suspicious, and they will refuse the tasteless liquid on that account. A little sugar may be added for their sake. And then the next section is about rubbing it on sensitive spots. Remember, we had a webinar from a man in Germany talking about rubbing medicine on sensitive spots, and that's page 158 here on the computer. So anyway, in my experience, we can just be fairly fluid about how much medicine we put in, and I mean, how much water we use with our medicine, depending on the size of the container. But you do want to make sure that you have ample room for free movement in the vessel you're using. So you would never want to fill anything all the way, because you're not going to be able to get that motion. You see what I'm saying? So never fill anything all the way up. So here's some hacks of how to get the water dilution, how to explain that. Oh, and make sure that people don't drink the whole thing at once. It happens. Yeah, it happens. And they can sometimes have a little proving that way. Yeah, so when we're looking at dry medicine and we're thinking about how many pellets that people might give as a dose, people might be giving 5, 6, 7 pellets, a whole lid full of medicine, you know, from the top of their oh gosh, what's that company? Boreon?
Boreon.
Right. They might
Yeah.
be telling people take a whole lid full. Imagine how much stronger that is than this. If you've got 1 pellet in here with this
Are you
much
talking
water.
about this?
Yeah, I'm talking about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes people say, oh, just put a whole bunch in the lid and just take that. That makes a really, really strong dose compared to diluting it like this.
That came from Kent, I believe.
Yeah, he said that it doesn't matter how much of the medicine it is. But it does matter when your patient has an aggravation. But then again, he liked
Actually,
aggravations. He said it meant
He
the
did.
medicine
There
was
is-
working.
There is actually what he mean. There is a one thing that has been described. I don't know which author, but he says if there are 10 pellets, if you take 10 at a time, it's equals to 1 single dose. And if you take 10 with divided time split, and sufficient time is there in between them, then it will count 10 doses. So it will be a 10 times more, and if you take all the 10 at a time, it will equals to 1 dose only. So this thing actually interpretation of many people thinks that if you take 2, 5, 7 or 10 or 20 pellets in a bottle, that will make no difference. Many people think like this, right?
Yeah, so the way we learned it was it's not about the amount, but more about the dynamization of the remedy as well as the frequency. So how many times are you starting the vital
Repeating.
or reacting? Yeah, are you so again, too much frequency can interrupt the vital force if it's already acting.
Which is really interesting because it's like the exact opposite of what Hahnemann tells. He's like, you can keep dosing and dosing and dosing as long as you have just the tiny amount of medicine, which is what he calls, you know, the minimum dose. The minimum means quantity to Hahnemann. It doesn't mean potency, it means quantity, the amount. He's saying that, you know, 2 pellets is very strong. We need to dilute that in water. And then we can continue to dose our patient as often as necessary, as long as we
And
provide.
even in yeah, even in LM potency, it described just a 1 poppy seed.
Yeah, same here. Same here in the chronic diseases for C scale.
Yeah, but that globule is pillated little bit bigger. A poppy seed is very small, and we have used that poppy seed for strong dose 5, 6, 10. Do you
I
remember
give just
that?
one. I give one of the poppy seed. That's it.
Yep, one is totally enough.
Yeah, that's what Hanuman says. One is totally enough.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
still, you don't need to give a poppy seed dry.
Yeah, you can do like Bonninghausen and putting in a cup
Yeah,
and put in water, a bunch of tablespoons, and give it a good stir. And then Bonninghausen explains also, along with Kahneman, about how to do like a 2 cup or a 3 cup dilution, which is important with the very, very fragile and irritable patient. Irritable as in not like angry, but irritable as in sensitive. Sensitivity and irritability are kind of close back in that time frame with words. Okay, so yeah, we can just take a couple of drops of this and put it in a cup with this much water. And then we could take another cup and put in just a tiny bit and add more water. And then that's a 2 cup dilution. And then you could take it to a 3 if you need to, which is a tiny bit. I mean, because this amount here, this is sufficient for a dose.
Tikva, excuse me. I thought that the drops was more for the LM potency and more of the teaspoon or tablespoon for the C.
Yeah, so what I do is if I'm going to use the plain vodka bottle for demonstration because I don't want to give myself any Bellus perennis. What I'll do is I will have I'll give somebody a few droppers full. Let's see how much that makes. It still doesn't make very much. Maybe I should be giving more. And then I add a little bit of water to that and then have them sip from it. Yeah, maybe we should reevaluate that, Devira. But it does work in a 30C, 200C, 1M. I rarely use anything higher than a 1M. Yeah, maybe we should be giving 4 droppers full. Good thought.
have you used potency higher than 1M?
Me?
Yeah.
Only a few times. One
Anybody
was a
else?
really sad
Yeah,
situation.
I have used it. If I've used it, it's because the patient has done really well on that specific remedy. And we've probably started on the 200 and gone up to the 1M, and we've exhausted the 1M, and I don't see a response, but I still see improvement. So I stick to the remedy, and I've gone up to 10M for sure.
10
Oh,
ml.
and
Okay.
guess what? You will never exhaust your potency when you do this. Because if you have this in a 1M, you can just succuss this again and give the 1M again. So you will never, you're not jumping large quantities of potency. You're not going from that 30 to 200 to 1M to 10M. It's very, very gentle. And
And a pharmacy rule. Sorry.
oh, go ahead. I'm just fixing my
uh,
ceiling fan.
A pharmacy rule is that when we are using centisimal scale, um, it is after 100 succussion, the potency jumps up onto the next potency. For example, 30 potency will jump on 31.
And then you could
And
empty the bottle and refill it and have your
yeah,
31.
yeah, then begins 31 after 100 dose, sorry, 100 succussions. And that time you have to take care. You need only one part of the medicine and 100 parts of water, right? So you just need a very little bit of medicine when you are jumping or changing the potency.
I
Yeah,
have
you
a
were-
question.
Okay, go ahead.
When you do the 10 percussions, right? And the bottle is left alone. You've taken the dose and the bottle is left alone for 3 months, say. Does that remedy hold on to that dynamization of the 10 percussion? So you've increased it, but it holds on to that newer dynamization, just to be clear?
Yeah, problem is that it holds a succussion how many days, it doesn't matter actually. But problem is that in still water, you are holding the water in water bottle for longer time, and there are more chances to develop an fungus in the water, so that
Yes.
contaminates. So it's not recommended to store bottle for such a long time, unless and until you put in a little bit of alcohol or tikwa says vodka, that avoids growing of fungus. You still you cannot use for say 3 months or 4 months like that.
Got it. And if you do put the alcohol in it,
Just a drop, just a drop.
I put a few drops.
Like I put a few poppy seeds. I am never satisfied with one poppy seed. I don't know why. Do you remember that thing we used to do here at my clinic?
Yeah, I know, you're really scary with your dosing.
Yeah,
What
And
I
then
started to do,
yeah.
sorry, I got this from Tikva, I believe. Um, sometimes I also think, wow, maybe one is not enough. But Tikva, do you remember I don't remember what point you said, take the bottle, take the vial and shake it. Shake it before
Yes.
you take out a pellet. And
Mhm.
I think that's such a great idea. So I always do that first. And then I feel very confident in that one little pellet.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
like to do that.
I
Yeah,
like
I
it too.
do. Yeah, that makes me feel a feeling of satisfaction. Yeah, and then I tell people to do that too. And then that way they don't have, it feels like you're just kind of like, making it feel fresher, happier.
And also the swishing in the mouth, so it hits all the nerves, the nerve endings of the
Yes.
tongue is also a nice idea.
Great idea, yes. Yep, we definitely do that here. I know that sometimes when we have a patient that isn't that familiar with what we're doing, they'll be like, okay, what, you want me to gargle with it? It's like, no, you don't quite have to gargle with it, but just kind of, right? Yeah, I mean, my family members, they've got the drill down pat, they're like, okay. Yeah, so, yep. Thank you, Devera. Oh, and then you will notice that if you're using so little medicine, that you're not going to run out of stock anytime soon. Saves on stock.
It sure does. And so does infecting the pellets, taking
Yeah.
placebos and infecting them.
Yep, that saves on stock too.
Have you read aphorism 248 of 5th edition.
Do you have it handy? I can read it
Let
for
me
us.
check. Let me check from here only.
Yeah, and here on the next page, after he talks about using it and rubbing it into the body shortly before going to sleep, he's talking about we can give rubbing, and then he talks about how where there's great irritability of the patient combined with extreme debility, it is best to use olefaction. And to make sure that you succuss your olfactory medicine as well. So even when we're using olefaction, we have to succuss it. We always want to change the potency ever so slightly.
Look at this 248 of 5th edition. What he writes.
Okay. I have only half the screen because I gotta move my thing. Isn't there a giant footnote for 248? This doesn't want to move. The dose of the same medicine may be repeated several times according to circumstances, but only so long as until either recovery ensues or the same remedy. This is where I can't see it because I can't move this screen. Oh, here we go. Haha, we figured it out. Okay. But only so long as until either recovery ensues or the same remedy ceases to do good and the rest of the disease presenting a different group of symptoms demands a different homeopathic remedy. And so in the 5th edition, you could repeat it several times according to circumstances until they're recovered or until they need a new remedy. But then we have different instructions with the 6th edition.
Yeah.
I'm trying to scroll your screenshot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you read now?
Yeah, I can. But this mainly pertains to LM potency, but not exclusively, because we can do this with C potency as well. For
Yeah.
this purpose, it's very much the same as what I just read. For this purpose, we potentize anew the medicinal solution with perhaps 8, 10, 12 succussions, from which we give the patient one or increasingly several teaspoon doses. In long-lasting diseases, daily or every second day. In acute diseases, every 2 to 6 hours, and in very urgent cases, every hour or oftener. Thus, in chronic diseases, every correctly chosen homeopathic medicine, even those whose action is of long duration, may be repeated daily for months with ever increasing success. If the solution is used up in 7 to 15 days, it is necessary to add to the next solution the same medicine, if it is still the indicated one, or though rarely, several pellets of a higher potency with which we continue so long as the patient experiences continued improvement without encountering one or another complaint that he never had before in his life. Should we discuss that? Or are we good?
I think we should discuss it again because even with Corona, patients that I've had, I did not need to ever repeat the dose. Like a 200C just did its job and it wasn't necessary to repeat. So I almost feel, not that I'm saying Hahnemann was wrong, but almost the medicine is so strong that maybe he didn't even give it enough credit how strong one dose could be. And I think we have
Yeah.
to be very, very careful. Just like what's the other night when you had Thursday night, was it? Or Sunday night when you had the
It was
last
Thursday, yeah.
Thursday, yes. So how they were talking about the how to manage the case, how to know when you should repeat and if you should repeat. And I
Yeah,
think that's very, very important.
it
And I
is,
think that
'cause-
most people read it and think that it's okay to give daily.
yeah, in my experience, we often in an
He
acute
clearly
don't need to
He
repeat it.
clearly says you have to look at the stage of disease. In acute disease, he says you can repeat according to the severity of the disease. If the disease is very much severe, acute, then you can repeat every hourly or often, he says. And in very urgent cases, emergencies, he is talking about epidemic diseases or pandemic diseases. These are whose microphone?
Yeah, I've never, only in just the most serious and terrible diseases have I needed to,
Yeah,
like with typhoid. In typhoid, I've needed to repeat more frequently. But in corona, I share your experience that
yeah. In corona,
sometimes they don't need to have more than one dose, but it depends on the person and how sick they are.
yeah, in
Some
corona,
people who've had
some
breathing
people are,
problems, I've had to repeat twice a day.
yeah,
So it depends on how sick people are. But yeah, for sure. If you're getting a young, healthy person with normal corona symptoms, that one dose might just finish them off and they're just fine. So yeah, we have to be careful and judicious. We
yeah,
can't just repeat blindly because they might get proving symptoms.
right.
As it says here in the bottom part of the aphorism.
He talks about even olfaction here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I like olfaction. Anybody else using olfaction ever?
You can tell us a procedure of olfaction, how to make and dose for olfaction.
I have a remedy of olfaction right on my stairs if anybody wants to wait for it. Or I could show how to do it here with one of these. What you would do is put one pellet in a vial like this that's tight, okay? This closes really tight. And just put in one pellet and then fill it partway enough so that there's room for succussion. But we always do an olfaction with alcohol. And then we have some room there for succussing it. Right? And then the way you use it, very, very simple, just we've had our medicine and it works so fast.
In what situation should we use olfaction?
We can use it in any situation we want.
I've used it in an acute situation. I used it as an intercurrent. So if the patient is on a chronic remedy, but they suddenly have an excruciating headache, or I've used it for PMS symptoms, like cramping, and it works so quickly before the patient leaves your site, they're feeling better. So
Yeah.
it's unbelievable how fast it works. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. Yeah, and this is one of the ways that Hahnemann suggests that we use the Nux vomica that we should be giving women who have problems with their menstruation. Any type of period problem, give those women some Nux and you will make their lives so much happier. It stops gushing, it stops all the unpleasantries, cramping, just puts it right at a halt. It's a marvelous thing. So yeah, I really recommend that everybody institute that into their practice wherever they have anybody who has any kind of problem with their period, even while they're under regular treatment, as is suggested.
Does anybody else have used Nux vomica as intercurrent remedy in periods? Any other? It's question for everyone. Karina?
No, I haven't specifically used Nux, so that would be interesting to try out. Usually, if it's for PMS, I would repertorize the case and start from there. But I've never just used Nux.
Yeah, that's what Hahnemann says. Just give Nux. Before you start chronic treatment, you want to give it on day 4. And then you can, then that'll stop pretty much stop the period soon. And then you can proceed with your chronic that you've already decided upon. And then if a woman is still having problems during their chronic treatment, then you can give it on day 2 or day 3. But I actually tell people to take it when they need it. So if somebody's having, let's say they're trying to wear 3 pads at a time in order to get through their, a few hours, you want them taking the Nux when they feel they need it.
Right.
And I know that in India, women tend to have scanty periods as opposed to needing to wear multiple pads periods, like at least I more commonly see, where we live. I don't know about you, Devera or Francine, Karina. Heavy bleeding tends to be more common in cases that I see.
I think that depends on nutrition levels as well. So, if you, like, I'm Indian ethnicity, and the people that I know in my family, it's always been the opposite. It's more profuse bleeding. Even my daughter, it's on the heavier side. And I think that has to do with more culture, nutrition, food, all of that.
Right.
But if you're going to go with malnourishment, then you're going to see the opposite, either suppression of menses or scanty flow. Yeah.
So, does anybody have any thoughts about, you brought up the concept of diet. Does anybody have any thoughts about the hormones that are in the foods that people are eating and how that's affecting them?
It is a concern, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, like, if you look at American children are like bigger than Israeli children, right?
Oh, I was just going to tell you a story, if you don't mind, just a quick one. I have
Yeah,
a
please.
cousin. I have a cousin that I connected with for the first time, my distant cousin that my father lost contact with, and his son is an oncologist, and he specializes in sarcomas. And we were talking about it, and he brought up, he said that he and his colleagues from Canada and other parts of the world. And it's just a specialty that there are only few of these physicians throughout the world. So they all know each other, and they got together and they started to talk about like why in America they were seeing such an increase in, I don't remember what the period of time was, but there's been a huge increase in these sarcoma tumors. And they all came to the conclusion that the American diet is just, and exactly what you said, Tikva, American men are bigger, American women are developing, young girls are developing earlier, and and the hormones in the food is
Mhm.
really a huge problem. So we need to also, I would imagine, and I do that where I can, try to educate our clients on diet, or at least put them
100%.
in the right direction.
Mhm.
We're not nutritionists, but give them that direction.
Yeah, I agree with you. Karina, are you doing that as well?
Yeah, for sure. Nutrition was part of our training. It was a good portion. So that is the first thing I do look at to make sure that they're on track with their diet. Especially if a remedy like nuts, constitutionally, if the person is binging and there's a lot of alcohol intake, that's a topic for discussion right there before even we start a remedy.
Yeah, you have
Good.
to remove those maintaining causes the
Right.
best we can,
Right.
but there's no way that we can really remove everything from everybody's diet. That might be a problem these days because so many things are
There
problematic.
Hahnemann talks about obstacles and maintaining causes.
Mhm.
Right.
So diet is one of the thing, but it is quite impossible to rule out each and everything. But much of things we can manage if the patient or a person agrees to stay away from uh, that noxious food which is bothering his physiological function. Hello?
Yeah, we're
Hard
here.
though, right? Because a lot of times people come to us and they just want a quick fix. They don't want to do the legwork. They may know what is required and they may know what they need to do. Now, doing it is a different thing for sure.
Yeah, I remember seeing somebody for a thyroid problem a few months ago. And I told her about the things that I wanted her to change in her diet along with her medicine. And she's like, oh, but it's my daughter's birthday tomorrow and we're going to have cake. I'm like, have that cake. Having that cake that, on that special occasion is not the same thing as eating, white flour, tons of sugar, and processed oils every single day with, garbage bread topped with margarine every day. It's not the same thing. Have that piece of cake, enjoy that cake, savor that cake, but make sure that your everyday diet is fairly clean. That's what I try to do.
Right.
That's very basic. I don't know if Francine means to go more into detail. Is that what, Francine, did you mean to like really go into detail about diet?
No, I don't. I think we need to, well, it depends on each practitioner with their knowledge, but I think that we need to bring that awareness to our clients, and to, if we're not capable of giving them that direction, then at least have them seek it out. But yeah, I found that was, coming from the medical field, was just an incredible. I mean, I myself I could figure that out, but the medical field is also,
Yeah, they tend to be, yeah.
they're recognizing it.
That's
Another
good.
thing that I found that's interfering actually with the remedies, and it's a big problem today because everyone's doing it. Everyone's smoking marijuana.
Oh, did you hear my
And
marijuana story that I told
oh
last time?
no, I did not.
Oh, it's
Go ahead.
hysterical. No, you can go ahead
Oh,
and
I
then I
did
can
hear
tell
it.
it.
Oh, I did hear it with the Gelsenium eyes. Yes, I did hear it.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. So no, you're stoned. Okay, I just
You're
gave you the
right.
wrong remedy. Okay, let's go back. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, okay.
So,
So yeah,
so
everybody's doing it.
two patients that come to mind. It prevented the remedy from really acting as should, and when they smoked a lot every day, many joints a day, and
That's a lot.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
And just
I think
telling them
that
to
needs to
stop.
be treated first.
It what?
I think that needs to be treated first.
I
Yeah,
don't know
that
if
might
that
be
needs to
better.
be, I don't know if it needs to be treated. The person stopped, one in particular stopped smoking. He cut down, he went down to one. Eventually he stopped altogether, and the results were unbelievable, were truly unbelievable. And there's another one also, very similar case, but that's something that we also need to ask these days, because
Oh, for
everyone thinks,
sure.
especially now that they're getting prescriptions for it, many people are smoking,
Mhm.
you know.
Or taking CBD oil, whatever that's called.
Right,
Yeah, CBD
exactly.
oil's big. And then people share their prescriptions when they have their medical marijuana. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something we need
Yes,
to
they're very
address
proud
too.
of it. They are very proud of it.
Yep.
You brought up Nux Vomica for alcohol and all that stuff. I had an amazing case years and years ago of a woman, interestingly from India, who had alcoholism in the family, and the remedy that really helped her was Gelsenium, like really helped. So I'm just throwing that out. It's Nux is not really like, it's the first one we all think about, but Gelsenium is also very, very powerful.
Right. And there's if you just look at addictive disorders, that'll give you a broader range of remedies. But yeah, Nux is like the first thing we think of with a hangover.
What remedies do people prescribe if there is, let's say, I don't know if we could say marijuana is addictive, but a lot of marijuana, use.
Well, in my experience, I don't really I think that the people often are, unless they're just using it recreationally every few months at a party, that I ignore.
Right, we all do.
But if somebody's using it every day, it's usually because there's something not right. They don't feel well. And then when we start treating them, they'll usually back down and not use as much, because there's a big difference between social usage and chronic usage. So I just, put that, I don't use a specific rubric necessarily, but
Right.
just treat whatever's
I was going to
wrong.
say the two cases that I have, we don't even have that to take that rubric in in the polarity
Right. You
analysis.
don't, right. Mhm.
Right. But the two cases were completely, I don't know, remedies. I don't know, sulfur was one and the other one was pulsatilla. So I don't think it's specific for addiction.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, so did we get a pretty good idea here about how to hack a water dilution?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I mean, it's really hard to go wrong, and just do whatever you need to do. and get people their medicine and get it into them. And we're about out of time for tonight. Anybody have anything that they want to share? At the
Tiff, I
end?
just want to ask you, where do I find the recordings? Are they on your Facebook page?
They're on YouTube, on the YouTube channel.
Oh, on the YouTube channel. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, we will share with you.
We'll put it in the group too.
And yeah, in the Telegram group also.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm not so active in the Telegram group. I'll look for it on YouTube.
Yeah, so we put everything on YouTube and then we usually share it around on Facebook. I noticed that like very few people come to the Facebook page. And then now there's an Instagram page. In case you want to join that.
Oh, I'm not on Instagram. I can't do all this social media. It's too much. Are you on Instagram, Tikva?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, as myself. And that's where I'm able to post the pictures of the grandchildren because, you know, my kids don't really like them on Facebook with all the strangers, right? So
Right.
my personal Instagram account is like people I know. And then there's a Homeopathy for Humanity Instagram account, which I run too. And then there's other accounts that I run as well because I do a lot of social media.
Do you find that the word gets out more through Instagram than Facebook?
It's going better with Instagram than Facebook nowadays. Yeah, I
Oh,
think that
wow.
in Facebook has been so, what's the word? When they stop people from talking?
Censorship?
Censored.
Censored, yes.
Censored,
It's
yes.
right that like I used to
But
get
they own
like,
Instagram.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because they're just slower there. Who knows? But things do go and get around better on Instagram and more people. It seems to be working better. Yeah, so you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Telegram, WhatsApp, YouTube. Is that all? I think so.
No, there's more.
There's more.
There's other, yes. Too much, too much.
Okay, Tikva and Sanjay and everybody, thank you very much. I'm going to sign off.
Okay,
Thank you for joining
thank
us.
you.
Okay.
Thank you for joining.
night.
Good night.
Yeah, appreciate everybody coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. I will just